to GESP and Soccer Joint Podcast. We are here to reimagine the playing field in women's football with female game changers. My name is Ruza, FF Serbia grassroots manager, sports industry specialist, and former football referee. Let's empower the girls with this episode. Big round of applause for my next guest. What a day! Welcome to GESP and Soccer Joint episode for another amazing talk with a special guest. Why special? Well, first I need to say to everybody who's listening that just to announce this special guest, I will need quite some time, but I will try to be as brief as possible. I have a pleasure that today I'm hosting amazing woman, Aleksandra Stojkovic, who happens to be, listen now, journalist, marketing specialist, project manager, business developer, former athlete, entrepreneur, and the most important of it all, my dear friend. Aleksandra, welcome.
Should I say anything else after you? I'm so excited and grateful to you, and I'm really happy to be your guest today.
Amazing. I was thinking about this opportunity last time when you dream about something, to have like a friend with who you succeeded together and then you get to record something with her. It was like, okay, today the dream is happening. It's actually came true. So if I have a first message to share with people, it would be it. Support each other, ladies, and you will get everywhere together. Speaking of the topic, speaking about reimagining our playing field for girls, you were, when I said former athlete, you were quite of an athlete. I was thinking that maybe this year we would probably speak about you joining the Olympics this summer instead of you being all of these amazing titles you have. But that is not going to happen, and you will explain why. But before that, I need to say that Aleksandra was a judo champion, 4-time judo champion of our country, and she was one of the most talented judo athletes in not only in Serbia but Balkans as well. So what happened, and why we are not going to speak about Paris this time, and why are we going to speak about all of other amazing stuff you did, because this dream didn't happen.
Well, quite a topic to start. I'm really happy what I achieved and what I become. But as you said, my start was sports. So when I was 5 years old, I joined the judo club in my local team in my city. And I was motivated by my brother and all of my siblings around me. I wanted to follow their footsteps. And even though I was the only girl in that crew, not just the only, but one of just a few, I was determined to become better than all of them. Even when I was 5 years old and I was attending any championship competition, my parents and family and people who were training with me, they're telling that story even now, that I stand on the field and I look so tough, like I'm gonna beat you. Well, even though when I was 5 years old, and my hunger for medals, for accomplishments was so high even then.
Attitude is everything.
Yeah, that's true. And I was dreaming on attending the first Olympic Games in 2016 and winning my first medal 2020. That was a plan when I was 7 or 8 years old.
Amazing.
I even had planned to go to school to join another club in Belgrade, since my city is not Belgrade where I was born. And I had
Shout out to Smederevo for so many good athletes, including you.
Proud girl from Smederevo speaking here. So I had that amazing plan, and my coaches knew that, my parents knew that, and everybody believed me, even though I was so small. I was so determined. When I was speaking about joining the Olympics, winning the medal at the Olympics, they were like, she's going to do it.
Well, I need to say and highlight one fact here, that your environment was quite supportive. And back then, when we speak about actually your age and the period of time when that was happening, and without saying anything bad about the smaller cities than capitals, still it was not something in common. But still you had a support from everybody. And is that support something you can feel help you achieve other amazing stuff you did in past and you're achieving now, even now? Is that what you can consider as your, let's say, maybe superpower, or somebody who's actually pushing you all the way?
Of course, it built my personality, because even when I was born, one of the great influences in my life, my grandfather, who was very successful back in the 70s, finished college and fighting for everything he believed in. When I was born, he looked at my eyes and he said, "Oh, she's going to be a superstar. Look at her eyes." And after that, my parents, they got me young. They were like, my mother was 21 when I was born. My father was 26. So they were young. But the thing that I'm most grateful to them is that they gave me freedom, and they gave me wings to fly wherever I want. So even though sometimes they didn't understand what are my wishes, what would I like to do, they believed in my will and my power to achieve something big. Whatever I wanted, I just sat them down, even when I was small. It was like serious talks. We sat as a family for any big occasion or even smaller one. And I explained what I want. And they were like, "Okay, are you sure? What are your goals?" And when I explained everything, they were like, "Okay, good to go. What do we need to do to support you?" So that support that I got from them, sometimes when they just, whatever I want to do, they just told me like, "We know that you're going to succeed." I was mad. Like, how do you know? But now when I grow up, they explained like, we saw in your eyes that if you are determined to do something, you will do it. No question
exactly.
needed.
Determination and perseverance are quite important, and it's really, really good when you have a support back home from parents. But also, we have so many athletes who didn't have that kind of a support and achieved a lot of great things. So this is really important to highlight both sides of the medal. But when we speak about that period when you were judoka, if I said it correctly, when you were judoka, what happened and why you had to stop your career?
Well, for 4 years in a row, I didn't lose any battle, let's say it like that. I was winning gold medals at every championship that I went. And my coach was a really great coach to me regarding judo, but he was not aware. And I know that it was a problem not just with my coach, but with a lot of people from my environment. They didn't see me as a kid. They saw me as a grown-up, even though I was very young back then. And he was pushing me so hard. And for me, my mentality was I cannot say no to more work, to more, I don't know, practice or anything. So imagine a 10-year-old girl going to a gym, doing push-ups, doing like 50 kilograms bench and 100 kilograms on press and running for 10, 12 kilometers. It was like, I don't know, I had 3 practices a day, and my body was developing, and I didn't follow that properly with my foods. So I was eating very low. I was eating basically apples, salads, and drinking water.
Yes, because we need to highlight that in judo you need to have a certain weight. So because of the categories and everything else. So basically, he expected you to be in your category in a really bad way, not in a way that you should actually try to.
My body was growing, but he wanted me to stay like 48 kilograms or I don't know, whatever was it. And I,
instead of pushing you to go in a next category or maybe going even more.
And even when I was trying, I was attending competitions at my own age group and with older girls, and I was strong enough to compete with them. I was winning medals even with them. So there was no like a proper reason for me to actually stay, for example, under 48. It was not something that only in that category I could win gold. No, I could win in 52 and 56 or whatever. So after like 4 years of that, let's say like that torture, I was aware. I'm aware now, but I was not aware back then. I basically had a mental breakdown. I was like 14 or 13 years old, and I just started crying, and my parents were so confused because they knew that I was so happy to go to every practice. I was even training myself on my own without him telling me what to do. And when they heard all the stories, what was I doing, they just, back then parents trusted coaches. They didn't want to like make questions. Why am I going to gym, or why am I running so long distances?
And today we have a situation where actually parents are telling coaches what to do.
Yes.
So no matter what development happened in the meantime, we still have a situation where you can actually make a mistake. If you're not telling anything, you're making a mistake. If you're telling too much, you're making mistakes. So relationship between coaches and parents is really something we have to do on a proper way to educate them in a proper way.
And to find like a middle part between not meddling at all and to be involved in your child's, let's say, athletic career. It's not a career, but it is a career. I was considering it like that. And it was like one of the longest conversations I had with my parents, and they were disappointed at themselves because they didn't notice all of those signs. And
they blame themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I explained that it is not their fault. They gave everything for me to succeed, but I could not go any further. And for them, the saddest part...
Why you couldn't go any further?
Because in my city, there was just one club, and then they split in a few others. And I could not imagine myself going to a practice without my friends that I was growing up with since I was like 5. So we spent a lot of time together. And for me, it was like, I don't know, I will be like, I cannot say that I could do it with any other coach or with any other club, with any other teammates around myself.
Well, in sports, loyalty is something we do develop. And I have to say that girls, they're quite loyal. And when we read so many researches about the loyalty regarding clubs, teams, we can see that boys are easily to switch a club or anything just to succeed. And for us girls, we are more into staying with the group and then actually pushing each other. So whenever they tell us that it is in our DNA to go against each other, that's actually not true, because even with football that we are going to speak a bit later, girls are starting because of other girls, not to compete like boys. So this is quite of an interesting topic to also speak a bit later. But I know that you transitioned to another sport, and it's a quite of a weird transition, I have to say, but it has a logic. You continued as a volleyball player. So from one point, it is kind of a strange because you don't have a physical contact anymore with the opponent. But in the end, everything that we have in martial arts, like yourself going down or throwing yourself to get a ball later in volleyball, it has a good basis on it. But I remember you telling me that you felt like trainings in volleyball were a piece of cake comparing to judo. Is that true?
Definitely, and I still stand by that. So
we're not saying that volleyball is an easy sport or you don't need to push yourself, but just comparing to it, it's a different way.
Well, for me, volleyball was like running away from the pain that I was feeling from leaving judo and all of my friends for basically a month. It was winter time, January. I was staying at home and not even leaving my room. So my parents were really, really worried. And when I started school, I wanted to join any team in any sports, even though other judo coaches approached me to join their teams. I didn't want to do it. So for me, it was like I was talented for basically any other sports. I was playing football in the streets.
When you think about it, are you sorry for not maybe accepting other offers? Like, what would you tell to Aleksandra Judoka from this perspective now, you as a grown person? Would you tell her go the same way, or you would tell her maybe try to with somebody else? Well,
I'm grateful for this path that I had, and volleyball also taught me like team sports is totally different. Even though we are in a team, you're fighting like one on one. But I wouldn't change my path probably, but the timing wasn't right. Like if I was finishing elementary school, for me it would be like easily to go to school to Belgrade and then join the team in Belgrade, where I wouldn't feel that I was like leaving my team for another team. It was like totally different feeling. But since I was like finishing 7th grade, as I recall, yes, it was 7th grade, I was like, I cannot make a pause for a year or two and then go back. Even though I was trying a few times to go to a practice in Belgrade, it didn't feel right for me. and volleyball felt right. I had a lot of friends already playing in a team. So I just joined a team, and it was for me another challenge because I'm short. Nobody expected me to play volleyball.
Well, this is a good message to all the shorties listening that you don't have to be super high to be good at volleyball.
I was like the shortest in my team, and everybody were telling me, okay, you're going to play libero. I was like, no, I'm a setter. I want a organized game. And they were like, but no chance, you're short. And I was like, I can jump higher than all of you guys, and my timing would be perfect. So it was like, for me, the biggest success whenever I block somebody or when I'm at net and I
Can you imagine the opponent, how they felt when a shorty
embarrassed
them? Definitely, but this is really something important to always emphasize. No matter your physical predisposition, no matter how you feel personally about that, actually, if you're determined enough, you can basically become whatever you want.
Yeah, but I want to highlight another, let's say, nice story about coaches, even though I'm grateful to my judo coach, of course. But my volleyball coach, when I went to play with the first team, he was a young man just starting his coaching career. And he actually, when he saw how much joy and fight I have in myself, I was throwing at every ball. No ball can fell around me. Like when I fall down, he was like, "Are you okay?" I'm like, what's wrong? Like, I know how to fall and not to hurt myself.
Well, that's something
and it was not
that
dramatic
goes from
like all
martial
those volleyball players are doing. So he was so happy having me in the team. So he basically changed tactics to use all of my skills perfectly. So, for example, if I'm at net, I had to block a really high player. I'm going back 3 meters, looking on those different balls that can fall behind, or he was really determined to use my skills pretty good. And after just like 2 years in the first team, he elected me captain. So I was like, it was between me and a few other girls, and one of them was like 5 or 6 years older than me. She had a really amazing career even before that. And when I was elected as captain by him and by my teammates, I was super proud, because the shortest girl in a team to be a captain, that was quite an achievement.
Exactly, but you also said something really important, that age doesn't matter. Not only your age, you can be still the youngest, but the toughest one. And also, speaking of the age, how long are you doing something, that doesn't mean that you cannot be the best, even if you're there just for a year or two. So to all girls listening this, don't be afraid if you're short, if you're too young, or if you are in any sport for a short period of time, because that doesn't mean a thing.
If I can add another message, like I was the one losing the voice after every game. I was supporting my teammates like so hard. I was screaming. Sometimes even people from the stands would laugh at me, like, why are you screaming for every point supporting your teammates? I'm like, but that's my role. Exactly. I want to support them. It's not something that somebody told me to do. And he saw that. He saw that support. And since I'm a setter, it was not like I will give the ball to the girl that's my best friend from the team. My best friend was playing with me, and she was getting like the last balls than anybody else in the team. And she was like, somebody who is watching from the stands would think that we are the worst enemies, not best friends. And I was like, when you're in good position, I will give it to you. No worries. So he saw all of those skills that I had on the court and outside of it. And he wanted me to be the captain of the team, even though he knew that my plans were to go to school, to change something in my life. He wanted to use it while I was there.
Well, you being a captain actually made you a great leader later on, and a great manager. But we will speak that when we do a fast forward to the period of time that we are in. But I have to now just say a couple of things. Do you believe that you were that actually when you were young, that actually coaches made you, especially when we speak about judo, actually made you quit or have a situation where you if you were in the sport longer, that you would exceed more? So if they were at least put a pause on you, like let you be girl a little bit, let you enjoy life a little bit more than you did because you were training all the time, like no time for going out with friends, no time to do other things that are normal for that age. So do you believe that you lack some time to actually enjoy your early ages, especially that period when you were playing judo? And would you like that like if now you can choose, would you choose to play more, to be with your friends more, or you would definitely stay in a way you did?
Well, it was, I would say in a way I did it. My coaches were part of my decision, but it was my decision to determine myself so much to it. And even when I compare, my brother was doing judo with me, and he was the one first leaving the locker room when we finished with the practice. He was the one that would
Running
like
to play.
Yes, to skip any practice if he can. But for me, it was not acceptable. And that my coaches expected a lot from me because I had that attitude that I want to succeed. But that taught me, and I'm repeating myself every day since I have a strong voice in the sports industry, that the best coaches, the best experts needs to work with kids. Because my coaches wanted me to succeed, but they didn't know how. They didn't have the right amount of, let's say, I don't know, expertise to determine it to me. My coach, he was coaching me for 8 years. First time he said something nice directly to me, not around to other coaches, to my parents, but directly to me, was when I broke my finger. And I was crying at a doctor's office just to like put it back together for me to play without a finger. He was like, I cannot do that. You cannot go to a competition without one finger. And I was like, but I want to just like,
put it
I don't
back.
know, glue it to my hand. I can do it.
Yes.
And I was quite special because I was not left-handed, but I did like some special techniques of my own. And my coaches liked that, but they pushed me so hard. And I didn't want to say no. And that's even problem now. When I go to a gym just doing something by myself, if I cannot do, like, for example, 100 laps of something, I will like feel as a failure. So I think that I still need to work on that. So I would like to have some coaches that were more supportive to me, pushing me, but the right amount of push towards me. So leave me to be a kid a little bit longer. But it's a combination of my personality and what they were thinking that's best for me.
In every sport today, we have a problem, and especially with girls, that coaches are using perspective from, let's say, senior sports for the youth categories, which is really something that is not good. When we speak about girls, we have so many changes during our puberty and development of our bodies, our hormones, like mental situation, everything is changing over those years, and they're not paying attention about that. Sometimes they even look at you through the eyes of coaching boys, which is why we also highlight a lot that coaching boys and girls is not the same. You really need to have a different perspective and different knowledge, and also you cannot coach kids the way you're coaching adult athletes. It's impossible, and it's not healthy. And that's why we have a situation where I don't want to offend anybody, but in the end, when we speak about Olympics, we will see there maybe the athletes who were least talented when they were kids. And because they were least talented, nobody would push them. Nobody would expect anything from them. They will just be there around. And because they were around, they had a chance to develop properly. They had a chance to actually start pushing themselves at the proper age.
They wouldn't peak at 12.
Yes. So peaking at 12, that's not the point.
Not a point at all.
So if you are not gaining any medals at age of 12 or 14, that's nothing. You can still be Olympic champion. So this is really something that we need to speak about, peaking in a wrong time. We see that in every sport. I mean, in football, we see that every day. Let's say the most talented boys are in the end not the one ending up playing in national teams or in top clubs. So this is really something to speak up about quite often as we can. So when you now see your friends who were part of your who were part of your judo period, and maybe even later the volleyball period, and you see them at the Olympic Games, how do you feel?
Well, I feel happy for everybody who succeed, because that was my dream, and I know how would I feel to go to the Olympics. I mean, I cannot know, but I will find out in a different role probably. But I'm happy for any of them. But sometimes when I take a look at all of those girls, and not just girls but also boys, who were like kids back then and weren't acting like professionals like I did. And I would like to tell this story, and I would like for all those young athletes to hear it, because for example, in my house, my brother started with good results, winning medals. After that, I turned over and I was the one who was winning more medals, and my parents love us equally.
Exactly.
It's not like because I was winning more medals than him, they loved me more or something else. And he was well respected as I was, so there was not a big difference. And when I see who succeeded and who went on like senior level winning medals, those are the kids who are not important to the coach. He was not focused on them. He was not pushing them hard. He was like, okay, they're there just to be your partners in some fight. So nothing important. It's not good for those kids to feel like
they're excluded or not important.
Yes, but for them, in the end, it was better to be that way.
Yes.
And that's sad. That's sad.
Exactly. That is really, really sad. So parents, when you see a coach actually giving all the focus to your kid, try to think and look at the bigger picture and see what that can do to a kid later on, especially when we speak about girls, because we also develop the authority in that period and everything else. So we have to grow up knowing that we are not always going to be special, but that doesn't mean that we are not the best in the area if someone's focus is not on us. But now we have to conclude your athlete career by actually telling why you had to stop with sports, because when you're talented for a sport and some sport, you're talented for all the other sports, no matter what you play. And this was also your situation with volleyball. I mean, you were super talented for judo, you used everything you learned there, and then you progressed in volleyball with your passion quite well. But in the end, you had to stop. You had to give up the athlete career. And why is that?
Well, I don't want to sound like a taxi driver who was like the most talented football player in his area. But now I want to be serious. I had a blood clot at the age of 16, actually on the underarm. So it's a really difficult area
it's
of
a
your body.
life-threatening issue.
Definitely. And it happened as a combination of movement that I did from judo and then from volleyball, because I was super muscly even for a girl that age. And I just woke up one day, my arm was twice big as the other, and I went to a doctor and they did all the analysis, and they told me like if I didn't came in the ER that day, it was Sunday early morning, if I didn't come that day, probably the clot would just go to my heart or my lungs or my brain. So I don't even want to think about the consequences of that. So for basically 9 months, they were treating it. And my first question to the doctor was,
when I will be back at the field.
Can I continue? She looked at me like I was crazy. And the funny story, I was 16, turning 16 that year. And when they find out what is happening to me, they wanted me to leave the ER and to tell just to my parents, because they thought I'm a kid, I would cry and stuff like that. And my parents were like, no, she's a grown up, you can tell it to her. And they knew what was my first question going to be.
Of course.
And
when is next training?
Yes. For all of the doctors, they were like, but your life is a threat. And I was like, but my life is sports. And when I'm thinking about it now, nothing can be bigger than your life, but sports was my life since the early age. And for me, the biggest like tragedy would be for me to stop playing any sports. But when I look at it now, it turned quite well for me, and it probably would happen without me having a medical problem. But it was quite a challenging time for me to finish it earlier than I wanted it to finish. And even now I have the consequences of that let's say, injury, but medical problem, and I would have to take care of it for my whole life. And when somebody is asking me what I got from sports, I'm joking that I got a blood clot. But it's not funny. It's quite a big medical problem that I had at that age. But I also think that it's built my character to be even stronger and to decide earlier what I want for my career to be instead of athletic career.
Well, we need to say something properly. Sport was not your life. Sport is still your life, but in a different way that now that we are now coming to. But also, I really believe that your athlete career actually helped you become who you are now outside of the field. And not only that, but in school, I mean, if you were super persistent in sports, then when you are in school, you also consider your grades and all the tests as your opponent or as a game, as a match. And this is really something that we can see with the athletes who are also following up some type of academic career. But when I said that you're a journalist, marketing specialist, project manager, business developer, entrepreneur, I didn't highlight the fact that it's within the sports industry, which is really important. So you followed your passion. You didn't give up on your dreams. And that is something that is really that you can be proud of. You moved to Belgrade to become a journalist. And throughout your life, you were really passionate about football. And I cannot say that you were passionate about proper clubs, but that's for the other episode. But in the end, you were super passionate about football and you wanted to become a sports journalist, which you did in later on. And the funny thing is that now I can feel that in football, you are what you wanted to be as an athlete in other sports. And how did you end up being part of football?
Well, when you say that I achieved from this side what I wanted to achieve as an athlete, I'm like, I maybe achieved even more.
Exactly.
I maybe achieved even more at the age of, I don't know, 23, 24, yes. 20 something, since I'm in my 20s still and I'm not done. Well, my first volunteering experience, I do not want to skip that part. Volunteering was a big part of building my career path. I started volunteering when I was 14. It was 2009 Universiade, and I was in love with that sport events feel. I could basically sleep in the cold at the pitch. So I was thinking, like, I was studying economics in high school, but I was like, okay, I'm really great at this, but it's not my passion. So I like sports. And back then we started with Facebook, with social media. I was always good at writing. And I found out every possible information on any player that was in the competition. And I was like, oh, I'm really good at this. Building contacts, and my English was good even back then. And
this is something that sports taught us
yes.
quite well.
Yes.
The foreign languages, we start speaking them quite early, and that's something really, really good that comes from sport.
Some of those athletes that I met back then when I was still a girl are some of my partners now working on different projects in abroad. So I was like, okay, what's the best combination? I want to become a journalist. And I was aware that Belgrade is the only option. I was like turning internet on, and I was like, where could I study journalism? And it was Faculty of Political Sciences. And I was like, okay, that's not something that I'm interested in, but it can give me another perspective. But I will study journalism and become a sports journalist. But I started really early. Since my second month at the college, I attended a conference and I joined a team of really young, enthusiastic sports journalists. We were following like universities leagues, and I found out how nice and it feels really, really good when you're at the court or pitch or wherever sports are you following in. But after just a few years, I was ahead of my generation. I already started working, and I realized that I can do so much more than just journalism. I cannot say just journalism. It's a big part of my career and I still do it. But
And it's an important job in our industry when we speak about sports industry. Like
Definitely.
Without journalists, nobody would hear what a good stuff are happening.
And the skill set
there.
that I got from it, it's really huge, and I'm using it in every other role that I'm doing. So for me, it was like the perfect switch from athletic career to journalist to any other professional in the sports industry that I'm actually am today. So, but I'm really happy that I was testing all of those things really early. I started when I was 18. So by the age of 20, I was like, okay, next step. I'm ready. I didn't wait for me to finish college to start going to, I don't know, some praxis or different newspapers. I realized it really early and I used my time well.
Yes, but when we speak about football, when we speak about futsal back then, because that was actually the sport that was really important for the university sports in Serbia, and you had a chance to follow it, how it looked like to be a female around futsal and later on football, because we still live in an era when football is considered as a male sport. And we did have a discussion even with this podcast. Do we call it football, women's football, or only football? How do we call it? Same with futsal, actually. So basically, how did it feel to be a girl in the men's world?
I will talk about two different paths. One was my colleagues and good influences, girls, women who are working in the sports industry and as sports journalists. And we were really supportive surrounding for me. And even back then, there were like more girls than boys following university sports. We were so much more determined than the boys. But when I started working like following the national team and working on those higher levels, the first question that I'm getting in the mix zone when we were waiting for the players, who are you in love with?
Of course.
Who do you want your boyfriend to be? Who would you like to marry? And I was like,
without football, we would never have a chance to meet a guy. Yes. Exactly.
That's the ugly truth.
Yes. Good to know.
And I was joking, like, I can do so much more than a football player. Why are you offending me? Yes, I'm a joke. I mean, I really enjoy working with football players, but I was joking around because they were like, that was a serious question for them. Like, even those guys who are like 50, 60 years old, who can be basically my grandparents, they were like, who are you
must be here for a guy.
Yeah. Yes. And then after that, there's a question, do you know what offside is?
Of course.
And all of those, or who won the Champions League in 1991 and stuff like that. And I was like giving the wrong answers just to confuse them.
Just for fun.
Yes, just for fun, because for me it was fun, but it's not funny. It's not funny at all that even now, after 10 years working in the sports industry, when you prove yourself, you still get those stupid questions. I cannot say that they are stupid questions, but there are. Even recently, like a month ago, a really good colleague of mine, we were speaking about basketball. He knows me from football, but we were at a handball competition, and he was like asking me, do you know who that guy is? And I'm like, it's basically like if he asked me who Jordan was, and I was like, no, never heard of him. Can you tell me something more? Is he a chess player or something? And he was confused. And I enjoy confusing them because when you ask a stupid question, I have a full right to joke with you.
Exactly. I mean, even in media, we are discussing this through this podcast as well. Even in media, when we speak about sports and we speak about female journalists, they're doing their best to represent athletes, no matter the gender, in the way they are. But when we see some titles in journals, like the way how this female athlete looked or with whom she's involved with, nobody speaking about her results. So this is something that we really have to change for all those girls and to try to speak about, because of all those girls who are then now following more than earlier, because now we have social media. So if everybody's just talking about somebody's personal private life, then they will think, okay, nobody's going to speak about my achievement. So this is really something that we have to change. And I believe that examples and people like you can actually do that. But when we speak about your marketing involvement, you're a marketing manager of one of the Super League in Serbia football clubs. Actually, it came from a fact that people who are working in marketing didn't have that much of a sense for sports itself. And we do believe that you really need to be passionate about sports, to understand it well so that you can promote it in a proper way, no matter if we speak about male and female especially. So then you transitioned a little bit in let's say in marketing, but you still kept that journalist in you. I mean, even though in past years I can more speak about your career as a marketing manager and business developer within sports industry, I still see that you are now succeeding and becoming, let's say, the best in journalism, as you became a UEFA reporter and everything else on it. So basically, even though you move from journalism, you end up back.
Journalist at heart. Basically, well, when I was starting my journalism career and I was listening to a lot of really successful journalists from Serbia, male and female, doesn't matter, and some of them were like, oh, it's my sixth, I don't know, Grand Slam or European Championship, I'm sick of it. And my first thought was like, if I'm sick of any sports competition, I would quit. I would not do it anymore.
Exactly.
Like, because that passion is leading me and it's changing the way that I'm working. Because even though some of days I'm not in the mood, if you ask the players, I'm working for 3.5 years in the club, and I asked the player, have you ever seen me not smiling? He was like, no. Have you ever heard me complaining? He was like, no. I was like, what do you think? Do I have problems in my life? He's like, well, probably yes.
Of course not.
But when I come and I see that grass, even though it's artificial, you see that green carpet, you see that sporting environment, my heart is jumping, my heart is bumping, I'm happy. That's the environment where I'm really happy. So as long as it stays like that, I will be happy to do it. But even though I'm moving to let's not say more serious project, but we are working on developing sports and to giving more opportunities to girls, especially in sports. And then that's something that I'm really dedicated to. Still, I'm really happy when I can ask questions, when I'm in the flash zone, when I'm talking to players.
And I'm happy that now I'm the one asking questions and
Yes.
you're the one answering, actually.
We switch roles.
Yes, this is something that happens quite often, but this is really important when you have a partner to do everything you imagine with.
But it's the right amount of journalism that I'm getting. If I would work, well, when I started, it was 2013. All of those online websites just started competing against each other with the clicks and number of news that they are going to publish every day. So
they're more into spectacles and then actually
that
doing
was
something
that I didn't want to be part of. I wanted to be a journalist that is going to, I don't know, write long articles, do some special interviews, not just like to type some news and steal from, I don't know who else around the world, the news that are not something that I'm interested in. So I didn't want to be that journalist. But this working as UEFA reporter is really something that is making me happy, because it's like the national team, it's European competitions. I have the chance to ask proper questions. Nobody's actually...
Don't forget the Champions League, please.
Champions League, yes. This season I had a hat trick. Champions League, Europa League and Conference League.
Well done. And this is a good message we have here. So you didn't succeed as an athlete getting up to the biggest stage like Olympic Games or something, but you did succeed to get to the biggest stage in a different way, with a different role that you also liked. So the important is when you find your passion, to not stop finding other passions, because you never know which one will actually take you to the biggest stage. But what I really want to use to wrap up this episode, and that is something really important to this project and even European Union, is quite highlighting this gender equality in sport and girls' participation, and using sport to actually motivating girls to be more confident and to have a bigger picture in their lives. You are a project leader of one really interesting program within Football Association of Serbia. So you are project manager of the program called UEFA Disney Playmakers, that is dedicated to girls from 5 to 8 years old. And now you have a chance to literally reimagine the playing field for them. To actually, if I would ask you, what would you do for a girl now? What if you would have a magic wand, like how would you create a program for them? You actually now have a chance to do that. What are you doing now? Speaking of how do you change that? How do you involve more ladies to work with you as well? And where do you see, what is the next step for those girls to actually achieve more?
Oh, well, first of all, that's one of the projects closest to my heart. And whenever, even after 2 years working on that project, when I see a girl with a football, my heart is melting. So that's the feeling that is driving me to do even more. So I want to say that more than 3,000 girls age 5 and 6 in Serbia started playing football and are introduced to football through Disney Playmakers.
Phenomenal.
And not just in Belgrade, it's just in villages all around Serbia. It's in cities all around Serbia. We have more than 20 different localities, let's say like that, more than 70 centers. And those numbers, when you take a look at the number of girls that age that are actually in Serbia, are really, really huge success. And
the funny thing is that sometimes I hear that people are telling that with this program you are discriminating boys. And then when I hear that somebody saying that in football you're discriminating boys, I can only say, oh my God, this program is super successful because somebody's thinking that.
Definitely. Well, when I was doing the education for the program, I was the one thinking like, why just girls? Why just girls? Why not mixing them with boys? Because when I was younger, I was playing football with boys. And I was that girl who liked to get involved with boys. But then I realized there were a lot of girls from my class or from my surroundings. They were shy and they didn't want to join the game because boys were in it. So I realized, as girls who want to play with boys who are more confident, we can find our way. But for those girls who are lacking that self-esteem and confidence to join sports, we are using Playmakers to show them that they are capable enough, that they can play football. And for me, one of the huge successes was like one of the Superliga, one of the best players in our competition. His daughter is part of our project. And she was like, well, I was thinking that football is just for my dad, but now I will be better than him.
Phenomenal. This is
and
really,
that's
really
the
nice.
highlight of the program, because she realized, even though football is part of her life since she was born, she realized that she can play also and she can be better than him. And that determination and then will to try to play football. And for me, when I try to explain to coaches, to anybody who wants to join the program, I was like, they need to have fun. Whatever they do, they need to have fun.
So you see what you're doing here? You're bringing fun to girls, the fun that you were escaping from when you were a young girl. So this is quite of an interesting
I was
situation.
not aware of that. Thank you.
I really like this.
Yeah, thank you for bringing that to my attention.
You were not the girl who had a fun at earliest age when playing
Yes.
sports, but now you're bringing fun to girls at the same age. Wow. What
Definitely.
a transition just in 20 years.
Yeah, and when I was younger, I was thinking that girls who do sports cannot wear skirts and dresses and heels and stuff like that. And now with them who are playing football, wearing
Disney princesses,
basically Disney princesses, and it's regular thing to see. I'm like, this is what I wanted as a kid, because now when you look at me, I'm always in heels, I'm wearing dresses, and I'm always having makeup and do my hair. So I can be girl, but I can be an awesome athlete.
And know what offside is?
Yes.
And it doesn't have anything to do with the kitchen?
Yeah, and that's one of the prejudices that we are breaking also, that all of those girls who are playing sports doesn't have to be tomboys, even though they like to have short hair.
Yes.
That's okay. But if you want to have long hair, if you want to do your makeup, if you want to feel girly outside of the field or on the field, you can do it.
And for us ladies, what are the opportunities moving on forward? What you can say that the next step is there for us, and what you can say to really give a final comment to this this topic. What is next? Because I do feel that with all the progress that's happening, it's still somehow moving slow.
It is moving really slow, and even though we are talking about discrimination, I'm supporting a bit of a positive discrimination, but we see a lot of wrong positive discrimination. Such as, for example, some of the biggest organizations in football who are employing women in the top positions just because they are women.
Not because of their knowledge.
Not because they are qualified for the role. Give the equal opportunity to every woman and let her prove herself. It's not a fight between men and women. It's a joint fight because every man at least has a mother. Even though he doesn't have any woman in his life, he has a mother. So we are fighting together to give the equal opportunity to all the girls, to all the women. We need more women in every field in sports industry, because I see a change. Because when I started, there were more girls in the website that I was working at than men. I was like, okay, we can do something. Now, all those girls are super successful journalists, and none of them would ever write about a body of any athlete, male or female. So we need different perspective to change the position of women in the sports industry.
Exactly. And I would say, and I really like to say this quite often, we are not running against each other. We are running the same race. So we deserve the same prize, and we deserve the same medal. And we can go and speak about this quite more. We can have it in a day, not only in hours. Even we can have maybe a series about this topic, something to think about.
Yes, why not?
To add. But I would say thank you very much for being really honest and vulnerable about your path, about all the issues you've been going through, because I believe there are many ladies in 20s and 30s who had to quit their careers because they peaked when they were quite young. And it is really important to remember to have fun. And thank you for doing that now for other girls around you, and you will definitely do a lot more in the future for them, I'm sure.
Thank you very much. It was true pleasure to be your guest today and to speak a little bit of different topics that we are speaking regularly.
Exactly.
So you brought different personalities from me out. So thank you for that. And I know that we are going to do something big and change the world of women's sports and sports industry for girls.
With the support that we have from European Union and all the partners who are involved in this type of a project, I'm definitely sure, because we're not in this alone. Thanks a lot.
That's the most important part. Thank you.
Big shout out to European Union for co-financing this project as a part of the cooperation partnership in field of sports.